Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today is another sketchbook session, and I have been really liking a specific color combo recently alongside with a very specific way of drawing. So as you can see, I've done a few spreads with this kind of like peach color and blue with kind of like dark black ink, and I was wondering why I was so drawn to this color combo until I remembered that in the past, kind of like during my uni days, I had both a pale blue and a peach colored alcohol marker as well. And oftentimes I would use it to block in certain shapes or color in some of my doodles like after class. So I have like a few of my sketches shown on the screen right here, but you can kind of see that I was really liking using like a pale blue and peach kind of combination, kind of like with I think it's the Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencils that I use alongside with like the pale blue color, and I think the peach just matched really well. That set of like alcohol markers came like in a pack of 16, I think. So there's some other doodles with some other color combinations or like a little bit of marker accents here and there on the spreads. So I thought that maybe it would be fun to take you guys along with me as I do kind of like another spread that looks similar to this. So the markers that I'm using today is 402 and 140 from the Arrtx Oros sketch marker line. Now in the future, I might change the markers that I'm going to use once these ones run out, just because to my knowledge, I don't think these ones have refills. I tried my best to like look up some other alternatives. I think I might look into getting some probably just 2 Copic chows and getting refills for them. 1, so that they're easier for me to carry, and then 2, they will have refills so that I won't have to worry about the ink ever running out technically. So to kind of preface the session first, I did end up using sticker paper, like a matte sticker paper on, I think it's, yeah, both sides of this particular spread. Sometimes I alternate it so that I can cover up previous bleed through, so maybe it's on the left hand side, and then I will leave the right hand side just without the sticker paper and just kind of alternate through. But for kind of like a more consistent look across our spread, I decided to put the sticker paper both on the insides, and then next time I will have like maybe the right side with the sticker paper and the left side I don't really have to worry about the bleed through. So probably for now, I did end up just doing more of a time-lapse footage of me working on these sketches. So in terms of like the spreads you saw a little bit earlier in the sketchbook with this color palette and like the black ink, I did end up drawing Alban, who is a VTuber and is one of my Oshis. I love his new recent outfit, and I haven't had time to really do like a digital piece or like I guess like sketch it out digitally. So every time I had a chance to sketch traditionally in my sketchbook, I decided to draw and doodle him, and it was kind of easy to carry around just like my 4 utensils of choice, I guess. So for sketching, I am using the Uni Dia Colour. I always forget the name of it, but it's like of that kind of sort of blue lead in this mechanical pencil. And then I will switch over to use the alcohol markers to do our colors. And then after that, I will switch over to the Pentel Energel gel pen to do our inking. So in the past, like during my uni days, whenever I did use these markers for this color combination, I ended up using like the Prismacolor Kohl Erase and or the Pilot Color Eno in the color blue, and I would use like the light blue to kind of accent and add a bit of shadow and blocking in like flat areas. But in this case, when I was using this particular lead, I feel like I don't know if it's because I sketched a little bit more messy compared to how I would sketch in the past, because I do end up doing inking for them, so I didn't really care if my sketch was too messy. A lot of the times the peach will kind of like blend in with my blue and it become very muddy-ish looking. So if you want to keep like things very clean, you could definitely find a marker, fine liner, whatever you want to use for your inking, and just make sure that it works with your alcohol markers. You can definitely color it in more cleanly after you do your line work. But for some reason, I always like the fact that I can do the inking afterwards and focus on the details and all, like, I guess like the lines that I want to make for the particular sketch to stand out. I can kind of decide that later instead of having to decide it right away after I do my sketch and then fill in the colors afterwards. But if you guys ever work like with traditional mediums, and maybe you're like me and like to work with kind of like a minimal color palette occasionally for your like sketching or like your sketchbook and stuff, do let me know what's your favorite current color combination combo, because at least for me, I've been really liking the peach and blue a little bit too much. Now, I didn't really think about this as of recently. I'm pretty sure when I first chose the markers to use in my sketchbook together, like both the peach color and the blue color, it was probably like I found it more like a derivative of the carrot colors, so like the 17 fandom that has like rose quartz and serenity. But that color combination, the pink's a little bit on the cooler side and the blue is on the warmer side. So I kind of have the opposite thing going here, where the kind of like pink color is more peachy colored and it's more towards like yellow and orange. And then my blue is more towards like that blue green rather than like a blue purple. So it became a lot cooler instead of that warmer color, which I still really like the color combination quite a bit. I don't think I really talked about why I'm using alcohol markers versus using water-based markers in my sketchbook as of recently. I think one is because I'm able to still make a spread, just because I do have leftover of that matte sticker paper that I can use to help cover up bleed through, and I'm still able to use up pretty much the entire real estate of my sketchbook still. But the other reason is that oftentimes when I'm using the water-based markers, and when I fill in like flat areas or just like the areas of color for the character or whatever I'm drawing, sometimes I go a little bit too messy and it's hard for me to interpret my lines a little bit later. So I've been really enjoying picking like lighter colors first of all, but the alcohol markers also dry pretty flat. So I don't really have to worry about, oh, like the streaking might obstruct the view of some of my lines because it tends to get like darker as the marker overlaps one another. And then I think another reason is just because the color selection that I have for my water-based markers tends to lean a little bit closer to the dark and mid-tone side of things. And even though I think black works well on most colors because it's pretty much the darkest color that I'm going to use, I still prefer the more like pastel or colors that lean towards more of the mid-tone to light kind of side of the value. And I do have some water-based markers that are kind of like more pastel-ish or of the same value as these particular markers, but I think I'm just enjoying having the more flat look recently, so I'm just gonna stick with this for now. Maybe until it runs out, I might look into getting like a replacement for the colors that might be a little bit easier for me to not need to worry about finding replacements. So a refillable marker would probably be the most ideal for me. So kind of like actually, I think because we're nearing the end of the coloring, maybe I'll save the story for a little bit later once we start de-inking. I am trying my best to make sure to kind of like take in consideration a little bit of lighting around the edges of like Alban's clothing, like his suit and stuff, just because it helps create a little bit more of form. So I take advantage of that anywhere I can that has like more folds or creases so that we can have things not look too flat until we get to the inking portion, I guess. Which, like I mentioned, I'm using the Pentel Energel Clena, which is kind of my favorite to do any of like my doodling and inking in my sketchbook as of recently, just because, you know, I did mention that I kind of found my favorite pen combination and this happens to be it. So it does not really smudge with the alcohol markers, so that's a plus. I can always go back in with the markers if I miss like a spot, and I don't really have to worry about accidentally ruining the nibs of my alcohol markers by having it pick up the ink of our inking pen, I guess. So oftentimes when I do sketching, I do try my best to sketch like somewhat loosely and like allow myself to kind of like, you know, test things out before I need to commit to anything. But for the most part, I keep in my guidelines. I kind of leave things a little bit on the messier side. But once we start doing the inking, I try to be a little bit deliberate with how I ink certain lines, and I try my best to be a little bit more conscious about picking the lines that I really want to stand out. I'm not really doing like a super scribbly motion unless I'm filling in like a black area or an area that needs a little bit more of like line width variation. But for the most part, I'm trying to get better at inking and like having a more deliberate placement of certain lines. So hopefully the more I doodle with pen every so often, like doing the inking and stuff, I will get better at it. But with that being said, usually I am a little bit more careful with inking, but I'm not super like anal about keeping things like within the lines or like keeping texture very even or anything like that. I just kind of have fun with it, but I do try my best to pick out my sketch lines a little bit more carefully, because at this point, even if I can't see certain sketch lines sometimes, like for water-based markers and stuff, the inking can really make up for the lack of form for a lot of my doodles and drawings. So I want to try my best to put a lot more effort into the inking, because I can redefine things, I can change things and put more focus on certain areas versus others. So I don't know, inking is just fun. I do enjoy being able to kind of like pick and choose if I want to put more of a value in, if I want to add more hatching or more detail. This is kind of like the place to do it, and I can actually see it come together rather than my sketch being hidden by the colors. So hopefully it kind of ties everything together nicely, and it's kind of like my favorite part sometimes whenever I do these colorful spreads of doing the inking last on the drawings and stuff. It's a little bit, I think I talked about this before, but sometimes when I do the inking before I do any flats and coloring and all that, I feel like it's a little bit restrictive, or I don't really like my inking as much when I have to color it in later. I don't know if it's because it's hard for me to visualize whether or not I want something to be darker in some areas, or if I want hatching to really accentuate something instead of like relying on color a little bit later. So I feel like when I do line art first before coloring, sometimes it looks really flat unless I go on like full rendering via like the alcohol markers and stuff like I do for like larger illustrations rather than my sketches. But because the rest of the video is pretty much just going to be me inking, and hopefully you guys don't really mind, I think I mentioned in Saturday's video that I was going to do like a stream, at least to kind of like test out the layout and just try to get back in the swing of things. But I ended up not doing that because I think I mentioned I wanted to do it on, I believe it was like for Saturday night, because I said that maybe I'll stream after I came back from my friend's little hot pot party. So I was expecting to stay there for only like 3-ish hours, but first of all, there was like 8 of us, which I was not really expecting. I'm very like introverted and shy, but luckily the people that I was not I never met before, I guess, they were very friendly. Definitely felt more like they were extroverts, and it was definitely draining for me once I came back home. I stayed there for 6 hours, so I didn't get back until after midnight, which was not the plan, but it was still very fun. But because I came back so late, I did not have the energy to stream afterwards. And I think Sunday I was just entirely drained from the previous night for whatever reason. So I decided that maybe during this week, I will try to squeeze in another kind of guerrilla nighttime stream. And I will try to plan to do like maybe 1 or 2, so that we can do like a digital one to kind of get us back into gear. And then maybe I will pick one night that I can do a longer session of a traditional piece, because I think at the beginning of January, I've already prepped like 2 watercolor paintings that I could work on. And I think it would be fun to work on like a traditional piece with you guys. So I'll definitely try my best to schedule that in for some time during the week. If not, I'll change one to like a stream, and then I'll have the other one for more like a real-time session. So just in case if I am not able to stream for whatever reason, I'll still have the process for that piece at some point. But hopefully, I think I might go through some of my alcohol markers, because I think I do have like a pastel set from Arrtx at some point I believe I received. So I might dig around and see if I still have it or if I gave it away to a friend. But I wanted to check whether or not there's some pastel colors that I could pair up to do a few other color combinations, because I'm kind of like, at this point, I'm riding the high of me enjoying doing the inking on top of the alcohol marker sketches so far. So I wanted to kind of continue while I still have the energy to do it until I get like art blocked or I don't feel very compelled to work on the pieces anymore. Because I do flip-flop between doing like more graphite work where I just focus on like using pencil, building up value and all that stuff. And I do usually end up making them a little bit more quote unquote rendered compared to some other sketches that I do in pencil in my sketchbook. But I do like these more colorful spreads, and I definitely think that there's going to be like a chain of them in the middle of my sketchbook. I'm gonna maybe quickly check. I think we are actually approaching halfway pretty soon. I think we're on like the 3rd month. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 more spreads until we hit halfway, which is kind of great. I think we're kind of like on pace with how like I usually fill up a sketchbook. Is like about half a year, like around 6 months ish. So if we're 3 months in, starting, I think November to December, it's 1 month. December to January, January to February. So we're kind of like in the middle of our 2nd month, or no, middle of the 3rd month. So we're kind of like 2.5 months in until a little bit later. So hopefully I won't take too long on the sketchbook. And I basically rambled through the entire inking process. You can kind of see how flat the colors look. I don't know, it just looks really crisp, but if you go like super fast like I did for the inside of his jacket on the right side, it kind of gets more of that streakier look. But I'm gonna try my best to use these markers as much as I can for future spreads until basically they're dry, like my previous sets. Yeah. And yeah, there's 3 sets of Alban in here. I just really love his outfit, and I think just the color combination that I figured out how to delegate it on his outfit just worked out really well. But I won't take up much more of your guys' time, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and little session for today. So I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!